The air hung thick with the dust of generations. The desert wind whispered secrets across the Sinai, and in the heart of the Nile Delta, a crisis brewed that would shake the foundations of empires. This is not a story of faith alone. It is a dissection of power, a geopolitical chess match played out across shifting sands and ancient decrees. We stand at the precipice of a return fraught with peril, where a single man, a fugitive with a divine mandate, dares to challenge the most formidable power on earth. Moses, the dissident, is back. And the question that hangs heavy in the humid delta air is this: how does one infiltrate the most heavily fortified empire of the ancient world, a realm where every road is watched, every crossing policed? To understand this act of defiance, we must first deconstruct the fortress itself. Our investigation begins on the northern coast of Egypt, where the fertile Nile Delta bleeds into the vast, unforgiving Sinai Peninsula. This region, crisscrossed by ancient trade routes and migration pathways, was the critical gateway between the Levant and the heartland of Kemet. Today, these ancient arteries are primarily mapped by archaeological sites such as Tel el-Dab'a and Tel Hebwa, the remnants of a sophisticated defensive network designed to control every ingress and egress. This is the physical context of our operative's objective: a landscape engineered for control, a stage set for a monumental confrontation. Now, let us calibrate our understanding of the timeline. This pivotal moment unfolds within the Late Bronze Age, the zenith of Egyptian New Kingdom power, while pharaohs commanded unparalleled influence in the Near East across the Mediterranean. Nascent Mycenaean kingdoms were solidifying their dominance. And in Mesopotamia, Kassite Babylon navigated its own complex political currents. This event is nestled within a global framework of shifting empires, a critical juncture linking the age of the patriarchs to the Exodus, stretching back through the Abrahamic lineage to the very dawn of humanity, and projecting forward through the covenantal narrative to the arrival of Christ and the modern era. He stood at the precipice, the wind whipping his hair, the scent of the sea and the distant mire a stark reminder of his homeland, a land he had fled as a murderer, a fugitive from justice. Now he returned, not in shame, but with a burning imperative. His mission was singular, his authority unquestioned by a power beyond mortal comprehension. Yet, the physical barriers to his objective were immense, a testament to Egypt's imperial might. The very air in the eastern delta felt charged, a volatile mixture of rebellion and the ever-present grip of Pharaoh's security apparatus. He knew the risks: a solitary man against an empire. But divine guidance had set his course, and the stage was set for a clandestine re-entry into the land he had once called home, a land that had cast him out. Delta fortresses, Pharaoh's border trap. The physical architecture of Pharaoh's control in the Late Bronze Age Nile Delta was not merely defensive. It was a suffocating blanket of surveillance and administrative chokeholds. The Ways of Horus, the crucial land route stretching from the eastern delta into the Sinai, was lined with a network of imposing mud brick fortresses. Sites like Tel el-Dab'a, identified with the ancient capital of Avarice, and Tel Hebwa, corresponding to the vital frontier town of Jeru or Sa'il, were not just isolated outposts. They were interconnected nodes in a comprehensive system. Excavations reveal their colossal scale: massive walls, strategically placed watchtowers offering panoramic views, elaborate water installations to sustain garrisons, and administrative buildings that processed all official traffic. These were the hard facts of Egyptian border security. Entry into Egypt from the Levant, or exit from it, was virtually impossible without passing through these heavily guarded checkpoints. Every caravan, every messenger, every traveler was meticulously scrutinized. Their purpose, their goods, and their identities logged. For an unauthorized individual, an operative like Moses, attempting to infiltrate this system would be akin to navigating a minefield blindfolded. The material hardware of Pharaoh's security rendered the landscape itself an enemy. the sheer logistical effort required to maintain these garrisons, to provision them, and to staff them with loyal soldiers and scribes, speaks volumes about the resources and centralized power of the new kingdom. These fortresses were the physical embodiment of Pharaoh's absolute authority, designed to detect and neutralize any perceived threat before it could reach the Nile's fertile heart. The weight of his past pressed upon him, the memory of a life lived in exile, the searing injustice he had witnessed, the divine encounter that had irrevocably altered his destiny. He had been tasked with a mission of liberation, a directive so audacious it seemed impossible against the backdrop of Egypt's unshakable power. He knew that direct confrontation was suicide. His strength lay not in brute force, but in strategic infiltration, in finding the cracks in the imperial facade. The narrative of his return was not one of grand pronouncements from afar, but of a silent, determined approach, moving under the veil of an empire's own rigid control. Amarna Letters, the royal court spies. The Amarna Letters offer a chilling glimpse into the intricate web of espionage and political maneuvering that characterized late Bronze Age diplomacy, a world where every kingdom, including mighty Egypt, relied on a vast network of informants and spies to maintain its grip on power and to anticipate external threats. These cuneiform tablets, unearthed primarily from the ruins of Akedanon modern Amarna, reveal a constant flow of intelligence between the Egyptian court and its vassal states, as well as correspondence with other great powers. While not directly detailing border infiltration tactics, the letters illustrate the pervasive nature of intelligence gathering and the sophisticated communication channels employed by the royal administration. They speak of covert reports, veiled threats, and the careful management of information to shape perceptions and preempt rebellion. For a dissident seeking to re-enter Egypt, understanding this system of royal court spies and the underlying paranoia of the ruling elite would be paramount. The constant anxiety over internal dissent and external aggression, evident in the letters, suggests that any unusual activity, particularly by an individual with a suspicious profile, would trigger an immediate security response. The intelligence file of the era paints a picture of a court acutely aware of its vulnerabilities, constantly scanning the horizon for signs of trouble and employing a shadowy network to maintain its precarious balance of power. This intricate system of information, control, and dissemination would have been the invisible barrier Moses had to circumvent. Historians argue that the very existence of such extensive correspondence highlights the bureaucratic sophistication and the emphasis on intelligence in maintaining imperial stability. He moved under the cover of darkness, the familiar scent of the Nile Delta now alien and menacing. His objective was clear: to confront Pharaoh with an audacious demand, a demand that would ignite a firestorm within the palace walls. He was no longer the prince raised in luxury, nor the fugitive hiding in Midian. He was an instrument of a higher power, a negotiator of impossible demands. The narrative of his arrival was not about a dramatic entrance, but about the chilling precision of his reappearance, a ghost from the past materializing to challenge the present. He had bypassed the visible fortifications. Now he had to navigate the unseen currents of royal intrigue. The question that echoes across the millennia is how? How does a single man, a fugitive with no official standing, penetrate a state apparatus designed to detect and neutralize any anomaly? The material evidence of fortified borders and the intelligence reports of covert surveillance paint a stark picture. Yet, the historical record suggests that even the most impenetrable systems have weaknesses, often exploited by those with sufficient conviction and a different kind of power. We must examine the physical constraints and the political landscape with unflinching scrutiny. The smoking gun. The archaeological evidence from Tel Habwa, ancient Jaru or Sile, offers a tangible glimpse into the operational reality of Egypt's border control during the New Kingdom, the very period Moses would have faced upon his return. Excavations at this site, a key fortress along the ways of Horus, reveal the complex infrastructure designed to regulate movement. We see the remnants of massive mud brick walls, indicating a formidable defensive perimeter. The foundations of guard towers strategically positioned to oversee approaching routes. And evidence of an administrative complex, likely housing officials responsible for inspecting travelers and goods. Crucially, the site's layout suggests a controlled entry point, a bottleneck designed to channel all traffic through a central checkpoint. This was not merely a military garrison. It was a sophisticated logistical hub and a primary point of enforcement for Pharaoh's decrees. The sheer scale of the construction at Jaru implies a significant investment of resources and manpower, underscoring the importance of border security to the Egyptian state. For anyone attempting to enter Egypt without authorization, this fortress would have represented a critical hurdle. The spatial reality of Jaru, its layered construction reflecting continuous use and reinforcement, speaks to its enduring role as a critical node in Egypt's security network. If you're finding this deep dive into ancient security fascinating, please consider liking this video. He stood before the throne, a figure of defiance etched against the opulent backdrop of the pharaonic court. The air crackled with tension, the carefully constructed facade of Egyptian power threatened by the very presence of this unknown emissary. He carried no army, no diplomatic credentials, yet his words carried the weight of an unstoppable force. The narrative of his return climaxed not in a battle for the border, but in a confrontation within the seat of power itself, a tactical maneuver that leveraged the psychological and political vulnerabilities of his adversary. He had navigated the external defenses. Now he faced the internal labyrinth of royal authority. The evidence is undeniable. The robust physical fortifications of the Delta fortresses created a formidable deterrent, designed to make unauthorized entry virtually impossible. Coupled with the pervasive intelligence network documented in the Amarna letters, the system was intended to be impenetrable. Yet, history is replete with instances where the most meticulously designed systems are circumvented by individuals driven by extraordinary purpose. The archaeological footprint at Tel Hibwa provides the physical proof of the choke points Moses would have had to overcome. The question remains, how did he succeed? Perhaps the answer lies not in defying the system, but in leveraging the very dynamics it sought to control: the flow of information, the anxieties of power, and the divine imperative that propelled him forward. What lessons can we draw from this ancient act of defiance about challenging seemingly insurmountable obstacles today? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. To uncover more truths hidden in plain sight, be sure to subscribe to Faith and Facts. We are building a library of investigations that seek to illuminate the past. Join us on this journey.